of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I'll get the legal stuff out of the way. This meeting is being held in full accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 12, 2020, order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. If you want to join the meeting and you're watching on BCAT, you can go to the town website and download the meeting link and join directly by WebEx. Or if you want to join by phone, the number is 408-418-9388, and the access code is 179-853-9460. Is there any public participation? I thought I saw one or two names that might be familiar, but maybe not. Hearing and seeing none, I will move on to the first set of warrant articles. So we're going to go clerk, recreation, DPW, and fire tonight. So we'll start with Amy, and she was going to give us a demonstration of the proposal for updating the website, so getting to meeting agendas is going to be much simpler. And it must be getting close to summer, Amy, because there's light outside your window. That's natural. So Brad, why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Tom and I met with Amy this week. There's a request from her office for $50,000 to replace the 8 voting tabulators that are currently in use in Burlington for elections. 6 of the machines were purchased back in 2007. Another was purchased in 2012 when Precinct 7 was added, and then an 8th was purchased in 2016 to serve as a backup. The machines still function, but the mechanical parts are beginning to fail. Amy noted that the ballots that are used, and most of us have seen this, the ballots used for early voting have folds, unlike the ballots at the polls, and the folds are causing additional wear and tear to the mechanical parts that roll the ballots through. Now, Tom and I had some reservations about spending $50,000 this year in particular, just given the reduced revenue the town has seen because of COVID. But Amy explained that when introducing new voting equipment, it's especially helpful to roll out the new equipment in I hate to say off years, but an off year where in this upcoming year, the only election that we have is the town election. The thinking is that gives her office the additional time to train volunteers on how to operate the equipment. Oh, and as an aside, the training and support for the first use of the machines for the first election, the training and the support are included in the purchase price. So given that was the case, the subcommittee, after better understanding the timing of the expenditure, did vote 2-0 to support.
Thanks, Brad. Amy, would you like to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty much a good summary of what we talked about.
Awesome. Okay, so are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the warrant article as written for $50,000?
A motion to approve.
Thanks, John.
Second.
Thanks, Roger. Cody,
Yes.
I heard yes. David?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
and Steve. That's 13-0.
Steve,
I
Brad
missed
Bond
Brad.
Brad votes in
Sorry,
favor
Brad.
as well. That's okay.
I knew I missed someone. All right, 14-0. Thank you. Did you want to take a moment,
Thank you
Amy,
very
to
much.
give a quick demo of the website, or?
Sure, yeah, I'd be glad to, if you got a moment here.
Yeah, if
And
you could do it. I'll make you a presenter so you can do it real quick.
okay, good. And thank you all very much for passing or agreeing with or voting for the warrant article. So yeah, let me just share my screen really quickly. So here's the website. And so basically what you guys know you had to do was go through several clicks to be able to get to an agenda. Well, the new thing that I have discovered is what we can do is put that agenda right out in front so that when you come to a meeting, like let's pick the Ways and Means one, I can pick on the day and I can see all the meetings. And when I click on the meeting that I actually want, you'll see the agenda right there. Now, what that allows you to do is have a copy of the meeting, whatever, the agenda, or if somebody does still need to have a downloadable version, there's the downloaded version there. So it depends on however they want to work it, but it's basically now one click. If you happen to be on the day of the meeting, you can also click that by just coming here to this list. So this list here shows all the current meetings based on time going forward. And so I could have come here and said, I want to see the Ways and Means meeting for April 28th, and it will do the same exact thing. Basically, here's your agenda.
And the link to connect is up there already. Good.
Yeah, the link is here. There's actually, we've just grabbed everything from the agenda file and put it here. You also do have this link here that identifies that there's a link to the meeting as well. So makes it much simpler for people to be able to get to the agenda.
Awesome.
So you just, it's like, I equate a new website with a new platform is like getting a new car. You know it's got all the things that you want, but you just can't always find where the windshield wipers are, or the you know, and with new cars, whether the radio is the radio or whether that's the backup thing that's then going to have the car park itself for you. So that's what we're dealing with here, and just took a little while for us to find the best solution for us here. So thank you all very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. So let's do recreation next. We'll start with Wildwood Park Sunshade.
Okay. I was hoping she was going to show us the meeting that automatically generated the minutes, but
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that myself.
all right. Article 711. Sonia and I met last week with Brendan and ran through these. Article 711 is an article that we actually covered and I believe we approved as a Ways and Means Committee last year, and then we went back and revamped because of COVID. So this is something that made it all the way to our approval last year, I believe. Wildwood Park, the playground there has no shade. There are no trees that shade it. It's very open. 2 summers ago, we had someone get second-degree burns on the slide because it was so hot. So there are times during the day that the equipment is unusable because of the temperature in the middle of the summer. This sunshade is something that can be taken down in the winter, so that it's more those sail kind of shades that you've seen. That go up on poles and they can be taken down in the winter so that they don't have to survive that and then put back up in the spring. So it is $45,000. It's definitely a safety item. And if there are any questions.
Brendan, anything to add?
I do not. That was very well stated, Doug. It is, the one thing I will add is a topic that comes up in any time we do a customer service type of survey when we did our needs assessment with the University of New Hampshire, and when we did the open space and recreation plan. It is a topic that comes up, that the lack of ability to use the playground during the summer months at certain times because of the heat, and then to have the person get burned, it brought it even further to the forefront of projects that need to be accomplished.
Thanks. Any questions from the committee? John, and then
Thank
I'll
you,
go
Mr.
with Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm just curious, are the other parks likely to have this same issue? Or Simon's Parks come to mind as one that's way out in the sun there.
Yes, so this park doesn't have any possibility of shade the trees the way the sun goes. Simon's Park is out in the sun, but as you may know, there's always a breeze up there, even in the summer. When it's really hot, there's still some kind of breeze going across. What we're planning to do, any future playgrounds that we build will have some kind of shade structure included in the design.
Okay, so the thought is that we don't need to get this for other parks right now.
No, most of the other parks have some sort of shade element during the day.
Great, thank you.
Trees around it. Yep.
Rob,
Except for veterans.
But veterans get some shade from the trees on the side. Believe it or not.
I was wondering how fast we could take it down if we get a hurricane in August.
They are quick release clips that are there. It's getting our men out there with either the bucket truck or the ladders to remove it. Hopefully if we were having a hurricane, we'd have at least 24 hours notice. If it's one of those events that we tend to get at the end of August.
Okay, I was just wondering. I was worried it was a whole day thing just to do it. So, okay, thanks.
What's the estimated lifespan on those, Brendan?
On the sale, or the actual shade cover is 10 plus years. You see them a lot out in the Midwest. I'm sorry, Southwest in West Coast, and then down in Florida, down south. There's some pictures in the backup of a school, and I believe it was out in Arizona or New Mexico.
Yeah.
So they do last, and the fabric is treated for UV rays.
is it multiple shades that are going to go up, or is it a single shade up against all the equipment?
It will be one single shade, and it will cover the large playground apparatus. And it will have 4 posts. They call it an extended hip structure.
Okay. Any further questions? Chair will entertain a motion for $45,000 for the sunshade.
So moved.
So moved.
I heard Roger, and then who was the second?
Tom and then Roger.
Tom and Roger. Great. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote aye, 14-0. Thank you. And the overseer.
12. So last year we were able to purchase an aerator, if you remember, and that kept us from having to contract that out to other people. And the rec maintenance department is really starting to work on field quality and safety. And so to keep the ground from getting compacted, we do the aeration, and to try to get rid of the crabgrass and get a softer, nicer looking grass surface, we now do overseeding. And so we have an overseeder that's 35 years old. You can't get replacement parts for it anymore, and so this is a replacing a existing piece of equipment. And if we approve it, we'll be able to use it this fall for the overseeding that they'll do before winter hits.
Awesome. Brendan, anything to add?
Just that it is the current piece of equipment we have. Trying to look it up to find parts is nearly impossible. And we're hoping to get some aftermarket parts to kind of keep it limping along, but we are not able to do that. This past week, we've been out overseeding, getting some fields ready for the spring, and trying to chase out any potential for crabgrass on the bare spots come the warm months. And we had to broadcast seed because we weren't able to slice seed with an overseeder. So it really, it puts the other parts of our program, makes them not as effective as they could be. So having a new overseeder will be a benefit to the field maintenance program.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for $18,000 for the overseeder.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John.
Seconded.
Thank you, David. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes, but I do have a quick question.
Okay, 1 second. 14-0, chairman voted aye. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Just wondering, does anybody know what the warranty is on this piece of equipment?
Brendan?
I do not have a warranty, but seeing that the last one is over 30 years old and we still have it, I'm going to just venture out that this will be 15 to 20 years. As long as we, continue to maintain it according to the vendor requirements or manufacturer requirements, it should be fine for a good 15, 20 years.
Okay, thanks. All right, Doug, the accessible van.
So we don't have any method, we don't have any accessible transportation for the programs that the rec department does that require transportation or provide transportation. We have more and more participants who may need that in the future. Our integrated programs are well known and applauded across the state, and we need to be able to provide transportation for people who need an accessible van, and the town does not have that. I believe they've used the Council on Aging van. Is that right, Brendan? But it's not accessible.
Right, the Youth and Family Services van.
Oh, Youth and Family Services, but it's not accessible and not always available. So we did talk about, when are programs coming back? Because of COVID, so many things went away, and so is this something we could put off a little longer? But they're registering for programs now, and they probably couldn't get the van until the fall, and it would be used immediately, is my understanding.
Brendan, would you like to add anything?
Yes, just the van is would be used in our therapeutic recreation program, which provides programs for recreation programs and leisure-based activities for people with a disability. Our therapeutic rec program, as Doug mentioned, is well known throughout the state, and we've gotten calls from North Carolina and some of the southern states about our program and how it operates. So that being said, that's a little push for the program. But we are using school buses and the Burlington Youth and Family Services van. They're very good about sharing it with us, and we try to reciprocate with anything we can. We have a cargo van that they use, but neither of the school bus or the van that we are utilizing are accessible. So we have a number of participants that are coming up through our program that will require an accessible van to be able to participate in our program. We do have a transportation line in our budget, and we estimate that we'll be able to save about $10,000 a year if we had an accessible van, because we wouldn't have to rent a school bus at anywhere from $260 to $340 a trip. And those trips could be just into Boston, and it costs us that much. So this van would be used primarily with our therapeutic recreation program. We would still utilize the Burlington Youth and Family Services van as we do now, but this van would allow our participants that have mobility issues, whether they're in a wheelchair or just can't climb the stairs into a van, to be able to participate more fully in our programs. And like I mentioned, we would be saving about $10,000 a year in our transportation line. And then finally, we are applying for a grant with the DOT. If we are successful for the total amount, obviously we would turn this back if it were approved. And if we're not eligible for the grant, or we didn't get the full amount, we would only use a portion of this request.
Great, thank you. Doug, just the cost and the subcommittee vote? I'm not sure you said those.
I'm sorry, the cost is $58,000 from free cash, and the subcommittee vote was 2-0.
Thanks. I see a line of questions, and John beat everyone to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, would this be an appropriate expense to at least partially fund from the handicap parking fine fund?
Brendan?
Sure, if you're leaving it up to me, yes.
Okay, there's one vote.
We've actually partnered a few times with the Disability Access Commission. We have a good relationship. It may be something that we could bring up to them to help with some of the costs.
I'm just noticing there's 110K in that. It seems like this would be a perfect match for at least being partially funded from there. So yeah, it'd be great if you could at least ask them.
Sure. We're working with them on an accessible ramp to the wading pool. So we have a very good working relationship with the Disability Access Commission.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, John. Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brendan, do you know if you'll be able to store this indoors when it's not in use, like in the new rec maintenance garage area?
That is a beautiful large building. We may be able to, but it wouldn't be easily accessible for us to get at, because we would be using it 3 to 4 times a week.
I see.
So housing it at our building would be okay.
All right. Do you also use it in 12 months out of the year, or is it more winter as well?
Yes, we have a Saturday program that runs throughout the year, a Friday night program, and a Tuesday and Wednesday program that would utilize it.
All right. My only point on the storage is it's a pretty expensive vehicle, so to whatever extent you can park it out of the weather, that might, increase its life a fair amount. But if you can't, you can't. So just a question, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Brendan, with the increases that's going on today in transportation, I was just wondering, is there any chance of considering an all-electric vehicle?
We have not found an electric vehicle in that size yet, because it is a large passenger van. we did look at that option.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I just have a comment, Mr. Chairman, after the vote, if I could.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Thank you.
The chair will entertain a motion for $58,000 for the accessible plan for the recreation department.
So moved.
Thanks, Roger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom.
Mr. Chair, I'm just a little confused at this point. There was conversation by John in regards to maybe using the funding from the handicap fines. Are we going to get an answer to that before we can vote?
I don't think we made it a condition. We did not have a motion to amend it to see whether the funding would be coming from the alternate source. I think at this point it was more guidance in that if there was any extra from this, then it would get turned back to the town.
I understand, but I mean, I'm reluctant to vote yes, especially if there's another source of revenue. And if we vote yes and everything goes through, then it kind of gets forgotten about. And yeah, you know what I mean? It just fades away. Yeah, the ability to be able to fund it through a different account. So I'm hesitant to vote yes because I think we're going to forget about that. I mean, I support the idea of it, but I really would like to see a motion maybe to fund it from that account. I think John had a very good idea.
David, did you want to make a comment?
Right. Ultimately, are the fines that we get from the handicap parking, those go into the general fund anyways, I'm assuming?
No.
So it's all, no, that's a separate account. So what happens with the fines that go into that account?
They accumulate.
They accumulate and nothing get, what's the use of them?
But the Disability Commission, I think, oh, go ahead, Roger, if you, or John, maybe.
I was going to say the same thing. There is a Disability Access Commission. They decide how those funds are used. So we can't assert anything. You have to, and they have a lot of other projects. I remember comments when we requested things from the funds last year. It sounded like they were very careful about how they use those funds.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Frank.
It's Frank. I believe the way the article is written, the monies can come from multiple places. They don't all have to be specific. And I believe we could amend this. Recreation or Ways and Means could amend it if, in fact, funds were offered up by the Disability Access Commission at town meeting. So I don't think it has to block us from voting the full amount from free cash here. I think an amendment could be made at town meeting if the money's available, and it is, and I believe whoever said it, it's right. That's controlled by the DAC, and if they have the ability and a willingness to offer up some, happen, I think, at town meeting.
Paul, you wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Roger hit the nail on the head. Disability Access Commission is pretty active with those funds. My recommendation would be just to vote the article as is. Brendan will pursue it through Disability Access. If they're able to provide funding, then that amount of money will return. The unspent amount of the warrant article will return to the town as free cash next year.
Tom, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just to follow.
Roger, go ahead.
Sorry. I believe Brendan mentioned that they were applying for a grant. It'll probably take some time before that comes through to know whether any of that money can be used. So it's hard to line up all these things before town meeting. I think we should just vote the amount and follow up later with the Recreation Commission, make sure that they've taken advantage of other offers.
Well, the vote is recorded. Motion's been made and seconded and recorded and has been passed. So I think this is a discussion for later on.
Right. So we're currently in roll call, and Tom, you can decide whether you want to support it or not support
I'll
it.
vote yes. Yep.
Thank you,
vote
Tom. Chairman votes aye. That's 14-0-0. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll get to the next issue, which is always controversial, the will of Marshall Simons.
Yes, so this is the first reading. We'll have the second reading in September to accept $65,656.54 from the will of Marshall Simons. We discussed it and decided that we would take it. That was a 2-0 vote.
Mighty good with you.
Congratulations. That must have been the first 2-0 vote for that article in a long time. Brendan, can you talk a little bit about what your plans are for the use of the money this year?
We do not have a list of approved projects yet. We usually start that process May, June timeframe. We have had conversations with the trust about setting up a meeting, but typically they like to see money go towards scholarships, towards special events, programs. This year we are doing that accessible ramp to the waiting pool with the funds from last year. That's the big project that we're doing this year. We will look at a second phase to we're trying to make from the handicap parking spots in the parking lot down to the pickleball courts and tennis court. We're trying to make that completely accessible. As you can probably imagine, it would be a very big ticket item to do all at once. And it's not easy terrain. So we're trying to break it up in phases. So we anticipate next year possibly going for a second phase that would connect the skate park and the street hockey area to the lower pickleball and tennis courts. And then our third phase would be getting from the Visco building down to the skate park area. So that's probably the big project that we will do with the majority of the funds next year. They also contribute to some of the field maintenance there, although this is the last year that they'll be contributing, or last year was the last year they'll be contributing. So by September town meeting, I will have a list of projects that have been approved by the trustees. It's just in their process. They just came out with the amount now, maybe 3 weeks ago, and we'll go through the process of having projects approved at that time.
Thank you, Brendan. Any questions from the committee? If not, the chair will entertain a motion for $65,656.54 to accept money from the will of Marshall Simons. I have a first.
Second.
Second. Okay. Brad.
Yes.
Cody.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Jaya.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Kelly. Kelly.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, I will accept the money.
Awesome. I was getting worried there for a second. Mike.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Roger.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Steve, yes. 14-0. I think that wraps it up for rec. Is that right, Doug? Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Brendan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make
Oh,
a
I'm
comment.
sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to congratulate Brendan and the department in general. These are very trying times during the season. And I think that the department really adapted on the fly and delivery of the programming and the catalog, and really was still providing quality program despite the restrictions that were in place. So great job, I think.
Well, thank you. I'm going to deflect that to the program staff who've done a phenomenal job. And we're actually recognized by our state association for their work on virtual programming and how they adapted. And then our maintenance staff continue to work throughout and kept up the quality of the fields. And if you get a chance to go out, really take a look at, Simons Park, Rahanes, Wildwood. They're phenomenal. And we're working on Francis Wyman now. So hopefully in the next year, we'll see some good grass growth there as well. So thank you. I will let the staff know that you recognize them.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see more of the organized sports on the fields, et cetera. I know there's been a lot before, but I know kids need to be kicked back to the business of being kids. So
Yes.
whatever we
Yes.
can do to help that process will be greatly appreciated.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. So we'll move on to DPW. We'll start with the Article 7.2, which is the vehicle replacement.
So the vehicle replacement and the total amount of $399,000. Last year we did fully fund the replacement schedule. So they have a 10-year vehicle replacement plan. And they analyze it every year. And sometimes there are vehicles that can be pushed off because they're doing better than expected or are still, usable and functional. So they did fully fund the replacement plan last year. This year, they've pushed some of the items into the future, either into 23 or fiscal year 24, because the vehicles are managing and are still usable and as a way to try to ease the budget this year, they've pushed some things into the future. Additionally, they had a new item on the schedule for this year, a snow blower that attaches to the front of a loader, I believe. And that would be used primarily when we have multiple big snow events and the streets start to get more and more narrow. And that's a piece of equipment that can come through and help reclaim some of the street because with multiple big snowstorms, you start to lose some of the width of the street. So they did push that off, but it's something that we will see in the future. John said this year it would have probably been used one time. Last year, I believe he said last year we might not have used it at all. Is that true, John? So it is something to keep in mind because it's an important piece of equipment that when we can add it, it would be good. And then finally, as we went through we should see less rust and corrosion. So as you look at these three vehicles, you will see that it's more about how old they are, but also rust and corrosion of the frame than it is necessarily about the total miles. And so hopefully with the new facilities that they're building and the ability to store this equipment indoors and to frequently wash it during the winter, especially after plowing events, to get the salt off of it and get the equipment clean and in an indoor space for storage. Hopefully we'll be able to get a little more time out of it. I'll let John go through each of the individual vehicles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year we have three highway vehicles that we like to replace. The first one is going to be an upgrade, not just a replacement. As you remember, about 10 years ago, we purchased quite a few fuel-efficient vehicles, including a few Ford Rangers. Over the years, we learned a couple of things, that they were not as heavy-duty as we would have hoped they were. And the other thing that we learned is that we need to become more self-sufficient when it comes to plowing snow. So our goal is to replace the Ford Ranger with a full-size pickup truck with a plow, similar to what we've been buying over the last few years. You've seen us coming in pretty much with the same vehicle every year, which is a one-ton truck. The second one is a dump truck that we're replacing. This is the one-ton six-wheeler. We have a couple of those that we use for parking lots during the wintertime. They also plow, of course, and that is due to be replaced this year as well. And third and last is our 10-wheeler. The town does own a 10-wheeler, which we purchased, I believe, in 2004. and it's coming to the end of its life. You got to think about too, like the fact that once that we ordered this vehicle, it's not going to drive in time for the next winter season, but it's going to be actually for the one after next year, because of the amount of time it takes to order it as well as manufacture the vehicle. So we're looking at probably 2 winters out before we're actually able to use the new vehicle. So those are the three. Typically, we talk a lot more because we have a lot more vehicles. This year, we only have 3 that we're asking for your approval.
Thanks, John. Are there questions from the committee? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the 10-wheeler, I think that was the first one that we had ever bought for DPW. It's our first experience with it.
First and only, Frank. This is before my time, but we only have one of those, yes.
Yes, okay. So what I wanted to know at the time, yeah, I guess it was before when you came on board, but there was a lot of question about whether we really needed something like that. And I think we've found that, in fact, it's very useful. Can you comment on, the level of use that it does get as a 10-wheeler that a 6-wheeler, 8-yard dump couldn't handle?
Yeah, so typically for the smaller jobs, I mean, a regular 6-wheeler will do the job for us. But when it comes to any type of excavating work that we do around town, outside of wintertime I'm talking about right now, this is the vehicle of choice for us to actually transport materials, because, I mean, you can fit so much more than the other ones. And in the wintertime, the fact that it's heavier than the other ones allows us to use it on the main roads. This vehicle is assigned Mall Road, the Turnpike, all those main roads for plowing. So that's pretty much where you see it. You'll never see it on a neighborhood. It's too big for that, but it really works well in those main roads that we have.
Okay, so thank you on that. And I don't remember exactly, but I think it's got under 100,000 miles on it now.
Oh, yes, it's got less than 100,000, but as I said to the subcommittee this morning, these are really heavy duty miles. This is in town.
Yeah.
This is not highway miles.
I was just wondering if there's anything we could do in terms of the purchase of the new one to get a longer life out of them. And it really is a heavy duty piece of equipment. So
we got a pretty good life out of that, Frank. I mean, by the time we replace it, we're probably gonna be in, somewhere in 2022, which is close to 20 years old since we bought it.
Okay. I didn't realize it was that old. All right.
So
yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Will you be able to store it in the garage, or is that something that's too big to be fit in the new facility?
No, the new facility was designed to fit every piece of equipment. So the new vehicle will fit in the new facility, yes.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of have 2 questions. The first one is the $53,000 for the Ford Ranger pickup. Now, Ford Ranger makes a 1-ton pickup, John? I didn't realize.
No, sorry, Tom. This is what we currently have. So we put over there what we have, and then we replace it with a 1-ton pickup truck.
Okay, excellent. All right, very good. My second question is, as I'm looking at the backup, all 3 of them notice that there's some corrosion, rot on the vehicles, and we had a problem with the fire vehicle a few years ago, which we had to purchase a new vehicle because the frame was rotting away. And one of the things I had asked the fire department is, don't you spray underneath? Don't you have the ability to wash the underneath of the vehicle to prevent the rot or to help slow it down? And I guess the question is the same for you. Do we do that? Do we have that ability?
So not as easy right now because we don't really have even a facility where we can actually wash these vehicles. The nice thing is the new facility, the one currently in the construction, will have a wash bay specifically designed for this, in which we have anti-carriage washing. So the new facility will take care of a lot of these issues.
And it'll be able to handle the fire trucks too?
If they want to drive it there, yes.
Well, it'd be nice. Yeah, well, they should, if they're especially. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Any further questions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to replace the 3 vehicles as written in the warrant with a sum total of $399,000.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Cody, I'm sorry, Brad.
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you, Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and chair votes aye. That's 14-0. Drainage repair and stream cleaning, Article 7.3.
We also approved this 2-0. This is an annual article since I believe John thought 2001. And so this is separate from the hand stream cleaning that happens through conservation. This is contracted out to a company with a big vacuum truck to vacuum out the sediment from sanding in some of the areas where that creates some flooding and some problems. We have less of that now than we did because we're not using sand anymore. But the money is also used for replacing some of the underground pipes that the streams flow through, some of the culverts, and so it is used every year to keep the water flowing through the streams and to help with drainage issues in various parts of town.
Thanks, Doug. John, would you like to add anything to that? John Sanchez?
Tommy wanted. Tom, you're here.
Tom,
Damn.
Tom Hayes, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Not too bad.
So we Doug pretty much stole my thunder, but we have a small. Well, last year we deferred this because of the economy and because of the pandemic. But this year we have couple jobs lined up that we'd like to do up by Fairfax. Off of Fairfax is a stream that needs to be cleaned. But you know, probably the lion's share of this money will go into repairing and replacing old corrugated pipes that have failed.
Thanks. Committee have questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Phil.
I have a somewhat related question about Network Drive and damage to the stream and damage to any of the drainage there, and how much is the repair going to cost? You were down there for what, 8 days, 7 days?
John, Tom?
So yes, that we were there for just about a week, and that was a sewer blockage that we had. We're still collecting all the invoices and all what it's going to cost. I don't want to venture a number other than to say it was an emergency repair, other than to say it's going to be a large number, very large number. And just since the question was asked, if Mr. Chairman, if you allow me to,
Please go ahead, John.
you know, we have had combination of wipes in the system and grease. And when I say the system, I'm not just talking about that particular area, but throughout town. We're currently working with different agencies to try to pass legislation to actually prohibit the use of wipes, because they've been doing a job on all of our pump stations. In this particular area, there was a sewer blockage with grease, which we could not repair by using trenchless methods. And typically we go with the jet truck, and it's just too heavy, too thick. We could not remove it. So we had to open it up, 12 feet deep in the ground, plenty of groundwater. And it was finally repaired on Friday. But yeah, that was a big job. And again, Phil, I don't want to venture a number, but I know it's going to be a very large number.
Okay, well, 2 follow-ups, Mr. Chairman, if you will. First of all, did you have any discharge into the brook? And secondly, to Paul, Mr. Sagarino, where's the money coming from for this?
So okay.
Discharge first?
Yeah. So at first, when my sewer operator called, they told us that they had been a discharge. However, we did not witness the discharge because when we were there, the manhole had not overflowed at that point, and we kept it by pumping and transporting the sewer throughout the entire week. We kept it from overflowing.
Thank you.
But we did not witness the overflow.
And the second question on the money, Mr. Sagarino?
We haven't yet had that discussion yet, but once John determines the actual amount, and John's being a little bit humble there, I think his team worked around the clock for almost a week, and we're able to handle this very serious break, mostly through in-house with the help of some local contractors. But there was a fear that we would possibly incur twice as much cost by having to call in some really major contractors to help with it. So kudos to the department. We still don't know what the amount is yet, but once John informs us that of amount, we'll have a conversation with John Denizio and Whitney, and we'll try to determine whether or not we can absorb that in the budget. If not, we'll have to look for alternative sources up to and including possibly the reserve fund, if we really can't absorb it within the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Sagarino. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, this is Mike. Can I ask a question? I'll take that as a yes. So can we back up a little bit? What actually happened now that we've talked about it for 10 minutes, but I don't know the history here.
Okay, so again, Mr. Chairman, at the intersection of the Middlesex Turnpike and Bedford Street, we were starting to do some sewer I&I investigation, and during the investigation, it was found that that pipe was blocked.
Okay.
So we proceeded to do what we typically do when pipes are blocked, which is we try to clean it up via flushing and other methods. And when that failed, that's when we decided that we needed to actually start digging. So typically, 99 out of 100 or even more, we're able to do it with the jet truck. Of course, this is the one that we couldn't, and of course, you have to be next to the brook. But that's pretty much it. So typically, we do this around town. Nobody even knows we're doing it. You see the jet truck going around. We clean it. Everything is good. This one was a little bigger than that.
And what was the situation with the grease and the wipes, did you say?
So there are two things happening right now throughout town, actually throughout the state. It's not just us in Burlington. All these hand wipes that people are using, and you'd read the little boxes when you buy it, and they say they're flushable. Well, they're not. They're not flushable.
Okay.
Once they leave your house, they either get stuck in the pipes or they get stuck in the pump stations. So there's a major issue that is happening right now, again, for us and everybody else. Once these wipes get mixed with any of the grease, and this is the oils and fats, whatever people are using in the kitchens, they create literally solid blocks of grease. And this is not soft, this is solid. You might have heard about the one in London a few years ago, called the Fatberg, because it's like a bunch, you need to use like dynamite to remove it. So that's happening around. So as a side note, we're working with the MWRA and other people as well to pass legislation to actually make them illegal in Massachusetts, because this is not helping any of our communities. Typically what happens to us more often than not is that at every pump station we have at least two pumps. So one will get clogged up, so the other one runs. And then we literally have to remove that pump from the ground and clean it. And inside the pump, what you find is like rags. That's what it looks like once you remove it. And that's becoming more and more and more common over the last probably 3 years. It's literally a big problem that is happening to us. Unfortunately, we have had some backups into people's homes because of it, which is not a nice thing to happen. We just don't know what they may be. We have over 100 miles of sewers in town, so you don't know what this ones may be. But yeah, there's an issue that is happening around. I don't know if that was the question, but
No, it was. Thank you, Mike. I didn't realize that. Okay, that's too bad.
So
Don't flush those things.
Steve, you're muted. And I saw that there was a lawsuit that Procter & Gamble had to pay off because their advertising was incorrect. Their product was not flushable, even though they said it was.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a water main break, and then on day 6 I realized that like they're still there, so it really can't be a water main break. David, sorry, I tried to get to you earlier. I must have been on mute.
Quite all right, but back to the original article. I know this question's been asked before, but it is a recurring warrant that we see every year. Is there a reason I forget the reason we don't put this in the operating budget? Seeing it every year, is there a reason that it shouldn't be there?
So we have the main reason for us for the DPW, and Tom can jump into it, is that this allows us to sometimes put 2 years together worth of money. If it's a warrant article, it allows us to, whatever money is left over from 1 year, we add money from the following year and do another project. If it's in the regular budget, you have to use it within that year. So it gives us that ability. This probably one of the main reasons why we still prefer to have it as a warrant article. Believe me, I'd rather not talk about it. If it was in the budget, we probably wouldn't have to talk about it. But it allows us that ability, which makes it better for us overall.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not seeing any further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion for $200,000 for Article 7 or warrant Article 7.3, the drainage repair stream cleaning.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Roger.
Second?
Thank you. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Gaia,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and chair votes aye, 14-0. Article 7.4, the sewer pump and VFD upgrade.
So I'll let John or Tom describe the details of this, but it is basically replacing a sewer pump and some controls that help the pump operate at the proper velocity depending on the demand. We pretty much approve things that deal with the sewer system.
John.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, so we have 2 locations that we want to address this year. One is the Grandview Station. The other one is Terrace Hall. In both of them, we like to replace the VFDs. These are variable frequency drives. This is the controls that actually controls the pump and the motor, and it makes it go at whatever speed we need it to go, so the flow is constant as it comes in and goes out. In addition to that, at Grandview, we like to replace one of the pumps. So it's a whole set. It will be the pump and the VFD drive as well. Terrace Hall, believe it or not, is getting older. So one of the 4 pumps right now needs a new VFD. And so part of the $80,000 we're asking for is to replace that VFD over there.
Thank you. Frank.
Yeah, John, you touched on it, but Terrace Hall, you say it's getting old. It seems to me that we overhauled that entire thing. How old is this system that you're replacing?
Tom, is this more than 10 years already?
Shamal was here when we started Terrace Hall, so it's
All right. Well, I guess I've been doing this job too long then. It seems like yesterday to me. But if that's the case, so the Terrace Hall station probably, I don't want to get too far into this. Even though it's a variable flow, that one probably moves more material than the others on a sustained basis because it's Terrace Hall. And that may shorten the life of the pump and the controller. But I'm just wondering if all of these are going to have to be replaced because the life isn't that good on them.
The answer is like this VFDs don't last forever, obviously. I mean, and that particular pump station, not all of the pumps have VFDs. Some of them, because of what you just said, Frank, they just go on and off because they have like a constant flow. But some of the pumps do have VFDs. So it depends on where you are, but you can't expect more than 10 years, 15 out of this. Is a very bad environment where they're operating out of.
Yeah. So
And
we should expect more of this then.
yes.
Okay. And how much is just the terrace hall repair, dollar wise?
Frank, I don't have it broken down. Well, I do have it. I'll have to look it up right now if you allow me some time to actually find it.
I'm just trying to ballpark what kind of money we might be looking at on a yearly or every other year. I mean, we got like 15 of these stations, I think, right?
Yeah, but a lot of them have smaller VFDs, so we've been doing those within our maintenance money. These ones are very large, so you probably wouldn't see all of the VFDs for all of the stations coming in through a town meeting warrant article because the size is not like this one.
Okay. Okay.
Glenview is a big station.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bill,
John, what percentage of the effluent is lifted out of Terrace Hall of the town's discharge?
I believe it's about 60%, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
thanks, Phil. Mike, did you have something?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion for a sewer pump and VFD upgrade for $80,000.
Motion to approve.
One from Tom and a second from John, I guess. Is that okay?
Yep.
Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye. That's 14-0. The next article would be the Mill Pond, Article 7.5, the Mill Pond Pump 3 VFD and Control Box.
So this is on the freshwater side. The VFD is similar in function, and pump 3, I believe, is the larger, higher pressure pump. It has failed, and we can do without it in the lower demand season, but in the summer, in the high demand season, it is required. The contractor that we will use has assured us that he has a backup that we could rent if we were to get in trouble before this comes through and can be replaced. But it is a repair that has to be done really before the heat of the summer hits.
And subcommittee vote? 2-0. John? Anything to add to that?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. No, that pretty much covers it. I mean, this one has failed, so we do need to replace it.
What's the daily rental charge or the rental charge for if we needed to put the rental in service?
So I don't have that number with me, Steve, because I really was hoping that this will get approved.
No. Yeah, I'm just so I know sort of what could be the ballpark, amount.
So no, I do not have it, but we do have. I mean, the reason we put it as an article and not as an immediate emergency to get it funded is because we know through May we have time with the demand to actually get it done before summer. So the vendor did say that he has one that he will allow us to rent, of course, but we didn't get as far as finding out how much it is because I really feel that we should replace it.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm with you there. I didn't know if we had gotten that far in the discussion. Frank,
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
go for it.
Yeah, this is Frank. So, John, so this is finished water down at Mill Pond that we're pumping. I know I'm not trying to do your job, I really have to ask. These are pretty heavy duty pumps. At least one of them is. What aren't they eligible for refurb overhaul rather than?
So the answer to that is yes, but this is not the pump. This is actually the VFD that we're asking to fund.
Well, this is the control unit.
Correct, which
I
is
see.
electrical. So this is a little different than the actual pump. The pump is still going to remain in place.
And what's the control unit breakdown? I mean, I would think that would have a very long life.
Well, yes, it does. The facility was reconstructed in 2007. So, and it finally failed.
Okay.
Years. Okay.
So,
Anything else, Frank?
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? The chair, seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for $40,000 for the Mill Pond Pump 3 VFD and control box replacement.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Chair likes to drink water in the summer, yes. 14-0. Next one is the Partridge Lane Pump Station Force Main design.
Right, so we approved this 2-0 also. It's $100,000 to start the design or to complete the design process for a rehab of the Partridge Lane pump station. They've had a failure recently that can't be patched, and it's just time to redo this pump station.
John, would you like to add more to that?
I have Tom over here who will give us a little bit more background.
Sure, Tom.
Okay, so all the pump stations in town, they're all designed and built in the 1960s, and so that as well as they can be maintained, it's time. You'll see in our capital plan, we've queued up a bunch of stations for replacement. Lucaya was replaced, Terrace Hall was rehabbed. We have Grandview, Douglas, and Partridge Lane. So Partridge Lane was accelerated just because we recently had a failure of one of the intake pipes. So we have a wet well and two pipes that run to the pumps, and one of those pipes sheared off inside the pump station. So we made an attempt to repair it by lining the pipe, didn't take. So right now it has a plug in it. So that station is running on one pump. It's a small sub area. It services I don't know, probably 70 or 100 homes, but it has to be fixed. So we pushed that forward. We're asking for $100,000 to do design, and I gave Doug the wrong number. It's actually, we have a placeholder of $600,000 next year for the construction.
That was going to be my next question. Thank you, Tom. Frank? You're muted.
My hand is left over. I don't have a question. Thank you. I'll get it down.
All right. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I should have checked this earlier. Do we have in the capital plan having each of the stations replaced at some point, or?
Yes, we have a plan. If you look at the capital plan, I can share it if you like, but we have kind of like design 1 year, construction the following year. We're trying to stretch them out. We're trying to stretch the stations out so that we can we're not going all in 1 or 2 years.
Okay, but that shows up in the town's capital plan is all I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Bill, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tom, are we bonding the actual construction?
I think that's more a question for John Denizio or. Paul Sagarino.
If we have a bunch of these, I mean, why wouldn't we float a bond to do them all instead of out of free cash over the next few years? Mr. Sagarino?
Phil, that's a good question. We can consider that. If we were just considering partridge, that would probably be a little small for what we would bond. But if there's a follow-up in the near future, based upon which additional pump stations they want to pursue, it might be worthy to consider lumping them together in a sort of a larger project. So we will look at that.
Municipal rates are so low at this point. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years? I think you can bond for 3%, right?
We can bond very affordably, but again, we have a very well thought out and well planned capital borrowing schedule that encompasses almost all the big things that the community desires over the next 10 years. So we try to keep that as clean as possible to give us the capacity to build schools and the big stuff that we've been working on. But it is you make a good point. We will look at that as they bring that forward next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Roger.
Sure. Oh, just to follow up on the capital plan, I was reading the version that's in the budget that was sent to town meeting. And to me, it doesn't look like there's anything, there are only a couple of things the next couple of years, but they don't go out. It doesn't look like the ones you mentioned, Tom, are out there. It's good to know you have a plan, but I don't see it on the capital schedule.
Mark, do you have a copy of the DPW capital plan?
No, I'm just looking at the one that's in the warrant. That's right. I believe that it's in, no problem with the planning. It's just documentation.
Yep. If you care to share it, Tom, I can send it to the committee. Any further comments? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for the Partridge Lane Pump Station force mace design for $100,000.
So moved.
Thanks, Roger.
Second.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Phil. Brad.
Yes.
Cody.
Yes.
Brad. David.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Shia.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Kelly. Kelly.
Yes, my mute button's working.
Mike.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Was that yes?
Yes.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
And chair votes aye, 14-0. Article 7.7, the library roof.
So we also approved this one 2-0. This is a little tougher one to swallow. I think it's understandable and it's not due to anyone's fault. But if you remember, a couple of years ago, town meeting approved a warrant to replace the library roof, and then last year we came back and asked for money to replace the air conditioning units, the HVAC, and the roofer had said, if you're going to replace that, you should do it first before you start with new penetrations into a new roof. And so the recommendation from the roofer was do the air conditioners first. So we did that this past year and just had the money set aside. In that interim time period, the codes have changed and requirements for insulation have changed. And so now we have a larger scope project than just replacing the roof. And it also includes raising the curbing for the skylight, which will have to be so that more insulation can be placed. And now you have to make the curb that the skylight sits on taller. So now we need a new skylight. So this is a money in addition to the money approved 2 years ago for the roof. So this roof went from expensive to very expensive.
Just so where you have a reminder, how much was the original article that passed for?
I have that. It's 220,000.
So the 220,000 plus the 350,000 is what's needed to finish the roof.
Correct.
But in the meantime, we also have leaks, frequent leaks that are coming into the facility. I mean, it's something that we have to do, but now we have to come up to new code.
Yep. Tom, you have your hand up?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm still trying to get my thoughts together. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious. Why can we not just eliminate the skylight? Why do we have to have it if it's just aesthetic?
John?
So the scope of the project was to was obviously to replace a roof. I don't believe the skylight is just aesthetics. I think it provides lighting for the facility as well. And if we were to now redesign the project, I couldn't even guesstimate what we'll be getting into for that particular area. I mean, it's something we never even considered as an option, to be honest with you, because that would change the character of the library.
Yeah, having a place in the winter with that fresh sunlight is awesome. And you can actually get in. Roger.
I was just going to point out that big skylight over the children's area is really important to the library, character of the library.
Yeah. Any further questions? Chair will entertain a motion for 350,000 to replace the library roof.
Second.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Frank. Brad?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
David?
Yep.
Doug? Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Abstain.
Rob?
Abstain.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom?
No.
And chair votes aye, 11-1-2. Next article is 7-8, the demolition of town property, which is the Carpenter House.
That's been withdrawn.
Oh, withdrawn. Forget that. The next thing I have is the repurpose of Article 31 from the May 2018 town meeting, which was the original Terrace Hall sidewalk replacement. As you can see, the sidewalk is a good 70% done down there, and we received an open streets, complete streets grant. So we have this warrant article. Doug?
We're jumping to Article 23 now, I think, then.
Oh, you want me to go to 20? I thought that was 23.
It is, but we've still got, oh no, debt service moved. I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. I apologize. Sure, we can go to 23.
Sorry, if I got him out of order for you.
That's fine. You covered it basically. We approved it 2-0. It's $120,000. And it's already been approved in 2018, but since that time we got grant money to do the actual project that town meeting approved. We'd like to move that money and repurpose it for a similar project at the end of Peach Orchard at Winter Street and Pearl Street. That's a dangerous intersection. Woburn has sidewalks coming right up to the town line and then they stop. And so this would complete those sidewalks, change the crosswalks a little bit, and even change, I think they're going to change the shape of the intersection a little to make sure that people come to a stop before they turn right onto Pearl.
Subcommittee vote?
2-0.
Thank you. John or Tom?
So we, this year we had planned to construct a sidewalk on Pearl Street. Because of sight distance, the crossing really wasn't at a great place. We wanted to cross people over to Peach Orchard Road at the intersection, but we didn't have adequate sight distance to cross them there. So we brought it back where we had a place we could cross them, but it was kind of awkward. So John asked us to take a look at it, see if we could do some reconfiguration, and it was kind of the perfect storm. We won that grant for Terrace Hall, so we'd have that surplus $120,000, which would fund the rest of the sidewalk construction down Winter Street. So now we can look at the project a little bit differently. So we had a public presentation where we invited the neighbors in and got their feedback. And if this article is approved, next year we can go forward and reconfigure that intersection a little bit after we do some traffic studies and find a safer place to cross pedestrians over to Peach Orchard Road.
Thanks. Frank?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. So the money's sitting there in a previously approved warrant article. Why do we need a town meeting to reapply it to another sidewalk? It's sidewalk money.
It was specific to Terrace Hall, Frank.
All right, so you're saying you need town meeting to approve moving it somewhere else? All right, Paul's shaking his head yes. And the Winter Street, Pearl Street, that whole thing, is the whole project going to be 120, or is there other money from the sidewalk budget plus the 120 for the reconfiguration?
There is other money from the sidewalk budget.
And that's already approved?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So this really doesn't use new free cash, am I right, Paul?
That's correct, Frank. These funds have already been set aside for Terrace Hall, and because we were so specific in that warrant article, if we had just said sidewalks back then, we could move it to a different sidewalk. But since we indicated Terrace Hall, we would require town meeting action to change it.
All right, so this authorizes the use. It doesn't play into additional free cash. Okay.
Chairman, is this one that requires 2/3 vote?
Oh,
No.
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I don't believe so. We've done it a couple of times over the years, and I don't recall it being a 2/3. I would imagine if the original vote was a 2/3, it may, but the original vote was a majority vote, so.
Yeah. David, you had your hand up.
Yes, my recollection on Terrace Hall, was there a partial contribution coming from a company that had committed to a certain dollar amount to the redevelopment of that site? And if so, what happens to those funds?
So there was
go ahead, Tom.
There was $30,000 that one of the adjacent companies donated to the town in lieu of building sidewalks in front of their facility. So that's sitting right now. We're using that to cover the soft costs. So the grant covers construction only. So any of the police details, any other sort of soft costs that are associated with that project will be taken out of that $30,000.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. The article was written that way because it was moved by a specific town meeting member and not by the administration. That's why it was written specifically for Terrace Hall, as I recall.
Yeah. Any further questions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to repurpose the May 2018 warrant article for use by Pearl and Winter Street.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Thank you. Brad?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And chair votes aye, 14-0. So we have a couple more DPW ones, I believe. Go ahead, Doug.
I believe, I mean, based on the list, unless I missed a change, I think we go back to Article 8, if that's,
So that is going to be the Chapter 90 funds.
and we discussed it, unless it moved to a different subcommittee.
No, go ahead.
All right, so Chapter 90 funds come from the state back to the town, and they are for road repair, basically, upkeep and repair. And so we usually get around $1 million a year. And this year we're getting $1,092,064. In addition to that, every other year we fund, I believe is it $2 million, Tom? For roads, that's in every other year.
It's $3 million for roads and parking lots.
Okay. And so this money, this $1 million goes toward that effort of keeping our roads paved and trying to rehab them before we have to replace them.
Just a clarification, I also believe some of the money goes towards new sidewalk construction as well. Any questions from the committee? This is article to accept $1,092,064. If not, the chair will entertain a motion to accept money.
Motion to accept.
Thanks, John.
I second it.
Thanks, Jaya. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and chair votes aye. 14-0. Just a request to Paul or John, can we get more articles where we accept money in the future? Thank you. MWRA debt service.
And I will always second them.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate that.
I just want to point out that my subcommittee alone has accepted about $1.1 million worth of gifts tonight. So if anybody else can keep up with that, it would be helpful.
We should assign more things to Doug.
Slackers.
Well done, Doug. Well done.
Yes, we should do that.
Yeah. Assign Doug the tax rate.
No, thanks. Article 9.
Yes, MWRA debt service.
Right. This is so we approved 2-0. This was an annual article that we see that basically the town borrows money from the MWRA to do projects related to decreasing our inflow and infiltration into the sewer system. The MWRA, the state then grants back 75% of the money, and then the 25% of it is a 0% interest loan. And so this is the payment for that 25% portion. I will also say, John gave us a rundown. I don't know if we want to do it tonight, but we've been very, very successful over the years and very aggressive in finding and repairing and removing I&I issues. And so we were able now to, we get approved by MWRA based on how many projects we do to remove them instead of, they used to have to account for gallons. And so now it's much easier when we can do projects. He can explain that, but it is an example of how we've done a really good job. And so DEP has backed off and given us some leeway there.
Excellent.
I probably made that more confusing, but John, you can fix that.
Yeah, please.
No, actually, you did a pretty good job. The town has been in the consent order with DEP to actually repair our sewers. This is something that the town has an obligation to do, and many towns around are similar to us. However, Burlington has done such a good job for many, many, many years that right now we are allowed to just do projects as opposed to having to account for every gallon in the system. In the past, if you had a new home come into town and you had to add 440 gallons to that home, DEP will say, okay, you remove 10 times that flow from your system before we allow you to build that house. So for a house, we'll be removing over 4,000 gallons of flow. Now we're doing such a good good repairs over the years to our system that it's getting harder and harder for us to actually find those gallons to tabulate. So DEP is allowing us now to just do projects. You know, we do investigation, we find what we find, and we repair it, and it's not tied to a number of gallons. That's not the same with different communities, and they've been hammering down more and more towns for I&I. Well, thankfully we're doing well enough that we just do our projects, and we continue to do them. Obviously, we're not going to stop, but that's where we're getting a leeway.
Thanks, John. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for the MWRA debt service, and this year's amount is $77,975, which is the amount that's written in the warrant. Is that the correct amount, John or Tom?
JD, you here?
Yep, good. $77,975.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Roger.
Second.
Thanks, John. Brad?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Chair votes aye, 14-0. Next up is the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Another one that rarely gets much discussion because we have to pay the bill. So this is paying the sewer bill from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. It's approving paying the sewer bill. It's $6,412,321. Subcommittee voted 2-0.
Thanks, Doug. John Sanchez, anything to
Yes,
add?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with apologies to the subcommittee that I met this morning, late in the day, so I didn't have a chance to get back to you guys with this. In addition, and this question was asked in the morning, I did not respond accurately. In addition to paying for the MWA bill, we included the maintenance for $150,000 that we used to have as a separate warrant article. This is something that in the past they have said to us, why do we have this article coming back every year? And it was coming from the enterprise. So the 6.4 million includes the 150,000 that you used to see as a separate warrant article. And again, with the apologies to the subcommittee, I missed that this morning, but that's why the language in the article is slightly different than what you've seen in the past. Now it says including assessment and maintenance. In the past, it never had that before. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Thanks, John. Any questions from the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. John, this is self-supporting, right? So do we have balances that exceed the total bill as a result of billings?
So that is correct, Phil. So far, we have this year particularly. You see it shown over here. We're going to use close to $500,000 from our current balance to cover this bill, and we're trying to use up that I want to say excess amount of funding that we have in that. But eventually, we're going to have to increase our rate to actually match the number that we need. But right now, we've been using existing funds to help us pay for these bills.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Tom, did you have a question or are you all set? Okay.
No, I'm all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Seeing no further questions, the chair will entertain a motion for $6,412,321 to remove our sewage and get it out of Burlington.
Motion to eject.
Thanks.
Second, taking that away.
All right. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom. He doesn't seem to be there. Chair votes aye. That's 13-0-0. Transfer to water stabilization.
So Article 11, we approved this 2-0. If you remember back when town meeting approved the MWRA projects, part of that was an approval to increase the water bill annually. So we have an increase each year. And that was to pay for all of the cost associated with construction and joining and purchasing water. And so in order to keep that very above board and clear looking and not commingle those funds so that people could come back and say, you're spending that, you said you were going to spend it on one thing and you're spending it on another. That delta between the water bill and then the additional money that town meeting approved gets put into this water stabilization fund via transfer in January, I believe. So I think it has to go into free cash, and then it gets transferred out of free cash into the water stabilization fund in January. And then in May, we'll vote to actually pay, to approve to pay money out. And so this is for the cost of the MWRA connection and the purchasing of water from the MWRA, which we started doing in January.
And that amounts for $462,000.
$462,000.
John,
This will be an annual article until all of this kind of stabilizes itself. So,
John Sanchez, do you have anything to add?
That every year you'll see this both numbers, the one in January as well as the one in May. The numbers will keep on going up to a point that will be probably around 3 million, in a few years. So every year you'll see this number much higher than the year before.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to transfer to water stabilization $462,000.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, John. Brad?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom? Is that yes, Tom? I see a yes.
Yes.
And then chair votes aye. That's 14-0. So the next article for DPW is Article 13, which is the borrowing water main upgrade replacement.
So subcommittee voted 2-0 to support this. I believe it's a large project on Mall Road and then maybe a small project on Wind Street and Mountain Road, I believe is what it was. And these are replacements that need to be made to keep the system running. So I think the Mall Road is kind of out and around Leahy Hospital.
Thanks. John, anything extra to add?
I don't know, Tom, do you want to add anything to it?
Well, this is our, every 2 years, we ask for money to replace water mains, strengthen the water distribution system. So for the past couple of years, we've been focused on the MWRE connection. So we have a project lined up this year, as Doug said, on Mall Road, right in front of Leahy. And then we have a couple of other projects down on Wynn Street and Sunnyside. Those will go next year. And then we have some other smaller projects that will queue up with any surpluses left over.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to borrow $1.5 million for the Mall Road water main upgrade replacement.
And Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, this is Frank. So, are we going to issue bans against these, John? Yes.
Yeah, that's the plan now, Frank.
Okay, and it's 1.6 million. Is that the number?
1.5.
I'm sorry.
1.5.
1.5, and we'll go out with a ban and eventually put it on the bond. That's the plan, right?
Yeah, unless next year we decide to pay off the ban with free cash or something like that.
Somehow I think that's unlikely, but okay.
Chair will entertain a motion for $1.5 million.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thanks, Phil. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
Jaya.
Yes, I said yes.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Sorry. John,
Yes. Yes again.
Kelly.
Yes.
Okay, I'm missing it, I guess. Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Chair votes aye, 14-0. And I think the last article for the DPW is the Francis Wyman Pump Station Force Main Rehabilitation.
That was also withdrawn.
Awesome. Is there any other articles that I missed for DPW?
But
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Frank.
this is Frank. So on the Francis Wyman one, we withdrew it because we can wait another year or what?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
So we are still designing this, Frank. So we're not really ready for going out to bid. I mean, we still have to finish design. We thought we were going to be ready. That's why we put it in when we did. But we're still designing. We have to go through permitting. So hopefully we'll be here, depending on the construction sequence that we'll choose, because we have to do both the pump station and the force main. We may be here in the fall, if not in January. We did want to, people to know that we may come in January. You know that sometimes Lisa Means doesn't like to see us here in January, but we wouldn't want to delay it too long.
But this would have been a candidate for Phil's idea to try to lump some of these together and put them out as a bond issue. Is that, how much money are we talking about here roughly for the whole thing?
We have a rough number of $4 million.
Holy cow. So what's the chances of getting it on a bond anticipation note in January, say? Could we do that?
Yeah, Frank, it would be no problem to borrow. We can borrow at any time. And in fact, if we approve it in January, we wouldn't even have to borrow the money until prior to June 30th. So
But
we would have plenty of time to put that together.
Okay, but we'd have to put out the ban in order to execute the project at all, right?
No, the law allows us to start with available funds within the town. And as long as we have replaced those funds by June 30th.
All right, so to Phil's point, I don't want to belabor this, but David and I and you guys, we also talked about debt and bonding and whatnot. The borrowing rates are so low that, we're starting to stack up millions of dollars here. And to whatever extent we've got uncertainty in the needs to use free cash for the next couple of years, I would lean towards borrowing anything in the $1 million to $4 million range. More likely to do that than anything else, because the borrowing is so inexpensive. So we should keep that in mind on this one. This is a pretty big project.
Agreed.
This is in for borrowing, correct?
Say
We were
that.
planning-
I'm sorry. What'd you say, Paul?
This was in the warrant as a borrow. So we were planning on borrowing this one due to the size of it.
Right.
But it's been withdrawn, so I'm just want to make sure that when it comes back, we're set up to do that. And it plays into Phil's idea of aggregating some of these pumping station things to try to, lump them together.
If the combined of was 3 million, it makes it a bigger deal, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You guys have got it. I just wanted to be clear.
Roger.
Oh, just an observation that, given John Sanchez's comments, it sounds like until we have the design done, we can't borrow the money. And it sounds like if we add more projects to it, we have to do the design work. And the design work is part of one of the bottlenecks.
Right, but the timing's pretty critical here. This has got to get done pretty soon.
And can't you you can bond the design work as well.
Yeah, I would think so. We should let them work it. I think the point's been made. These look like, in all of this pumping station rehab stuff, there's enough of these to whatever extent we can use borrowing at a low enough rate. And it's probably going to be quite low compared to using up free cash, which is going to get harder and harder to generate. These look like good candidates to lump in here.
Yep. Doug, that's it for DPW, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Tom.
Nice job, Doug.
Yep, nice job.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. And now we'll move on to fire. Sorry to keep Chief Patterson waiting for so long. So Mike, we have Article 7.9, the Lexi Poll training and policy and training solutions.
Great, thank you. So Phil and I met with the chief and discussed this article. We subcommittee approved 2-0, kind of just looking at the capital request form. So what this article is about is to allow the fire department to be able to kind of bring together and organize their policies and procedures that to date are scattered in different locations, are outdated, and are often difficult to access. So what this will do is pull it together with a company that specializes in this, train people on how to use it, and provide software to house these things that can be accessed either via computer, mobile device, so that people always know what the kind of procedures are as they go out through their through the jobs they need to do.
Thanks, Mike. You said 2-0, right?
2-0, yep.
Thanks. Chief Patterson, would you like to welcome and would you like to add anything?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one area that we're lacking a little bit at the fire department that we're looking to certainly strengthen. As Mike pointed out, we have numerous policies and procedures, rules and regulations, standard operating guidelines, and the goal here is to bring them under one platform, of which would be easily accessible to all our members, and either through a website using a computer or even their own cellular phone. Lexipol is a nationally recognized company. We've actually been looking at this product for a couple of years now, and At this time, I think it would be the smart thing for us to do to move in this direction to try to strengthen our organization.
Thanks. Any questions from the committee? John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Chief. Good to see you. I had just a few things on this. So it's great that this has the online capability, so people can access it anywhere and it's easy to find. Will we have a version that's not online, so that I'm just thinking about the case that if we decide to stop using Lexipol for at some point in the future, do we actually own the policies and have access to them without Lexipol providing the web service?
Chief Patterson.
Yeah, so I believe that if we establish a policy platform, that we would buy into this software on a yearly basis. If we chose to not continue the service, I mean, we own the platform up until we decide to stop. So we would have accessibility to that policy.
So we're actually owning the policy. We're not just renting it, so to speak.
Correct. We're working directly with Lexipol to create our policies, incorporate some of their policies that we could use in Burlington into one manageable policy.
Okay. And if I may just do a few follow-ups, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Eiler.
Thank you. There's a 10K per year maintenance on this. Is that something that would come out of the operating budget, I assume?
That would be something that I would include in our operating budget beginning next fiscal year.
Okay. And I'm curious, what do the police use for their policies?
To be honest with you, I am not sure. I know they have pretty solid policies and procedures in place. We need to get to that point. So it's really a monumental task to try to do this, with a few people. So that's why, we feel at this time it's really a must to seek outside assistance to help us put this together.
Okay, and just a final one. I see where they list that they've done a whole pile of these in the past. Do you have any sense of how many they've done in Massachusetts?
I do not know the number of departments, public safety departments that use Lexipol. I know there's several of them. We communicated with Lexipol about a year ago, and I think at that time they did give us a list of communities that they did use Lexipol. Obviously, they were looking to expand in Massachusetts, but I don't have that exact number. I can certainly look that up for you, Jim.
Okay, obviously want to make sure we're not the first, or we're getting a big discount if we are.
No, no, certainly not the first.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Roger, and then I'll go to Frank.
All right. Hi, Chief. So it concerns me a little bit that you haven't found another community to give it as a reference account for Lexipol to see how they worked. My other questions are, it seems like, there are a lot of different fire departments in Massachusetts, and I'm kind of curious how many of them have consistent policies, or at least some of them be consistent. Is Lexipol in a position to really do a full depth diligence on making sure policies are consistent with state law and other departments, and pointing out places where our policies are, close to other policies? It's nice to see. I mean, maybe I'm going too far, but it's nice to see that they're easy to review, consistent across with other departments that we're not. And I guess clearly it's up to the department itself to decide what the policies are, right?
Correct.
And they're helping organize and rationalize it as well as deliver it. I'm also a little bit concerned about buying into the indefinite license plan going forward. But anyway.
I mean, Roger, I mean, everything that you just said is included within their literature of what they offer public safety departments. They have attorneys that follow laws, Massachusetts laws, and if policies need to be changed, they tweak them according to new rules and regulations. So that's one of the huge benefits about going to a Lexipol is that, they keep their eye on the ball.
That's good. I guess one other question, will it be reviewable by the community?
I would say yes. I don't know that 100%, Roger. Policies and procedures, I mean, they're public documents, so I would say yes.
Okay, that's good.
One of the...
Yeah, so that sometimes there are, in some fringe areas, there are policies which you don't want to make public for various reasons, that maybe more in the police department than in fire, but
yeah,
it's good to know that the overall framework is available as a public document.
Thanks, Chief. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chief, I definitely support what you're doing here. I think it sounds like it's in some sense overdue that we put together a framework and then fill it in with current and complete policies, procedures, training, that sort of thing. But John touched on something which I'm still not sure we have clear. By signing up with these guys, they provide us all the support we need in a framework to fill it in with something that's tailored to us. We want, we agree to buy, we own, we need, we employ. But at some point, after a year or three, it's in use, and we have a maintenance contract with them, I assume, in order to just use the framework to access and continue to maintain our own policies. So that's what the license is for. What happens if we decide? It sounds like the whole thing would fall apart if we didn't maintain that annual license with them. We might own the policy, but what good are they without a mechanism to access, maintain, etc.? So is that where this is headed? We would actually buy into this annual program in order to have the use of this framework on a sustained basis.
Chief Patterson.
I don't think you can just walk away with it after 2 years and say, I own it and we're all set. We'll update it every 5 years. Doesn't seem like that kind of a program. Am I right?
I believe that the annual fee, certainly you're not bound by annual fees year to year. But there has to be an out at some point in time in when you purchase this type of program.
Yeah, I'm not very clear. I mean, if you took the out, what have you got? A printed document?
Yeah, I mean, you have a document which you have created. It doesn't get updated through this platform. You basically would be on your own.
Yeah, John, you were sort of getting into this a little bit. I'm not sure you can use it on your own. Not that you don't have the right to use it. You don't have a way to use it. You need the web access, I would think.
I mean, I can certainly look a little deeper into this and get that question answered for you.
Yeah, I think we should. I don't even have a problem with buying into a program that it's a 10K annual fee to maintain it.
Yeah.
And after 5 or 10 years, you decide you want a different program, then you
Yeah.
have a transition strategy and go find someone else.
Sure. I'm sure that's very common.
But I don't think you can just walk away from this thing after 2 years and say, I got everything I need. See you later.
Roger had a follow-up.
What are you doing, John?
Yeah, just to follow up, I mean, if this were a website type of contract or arrangement, you as a department would have the ability to maintain it and edit it yourself.
Yes.
If that were true, if that's true for this, for Lexipol, that would be really valuable. I think it would a little bit, address some of the issues of what happens at the end. We don't necessarily need them to maintain the website. They certainly add value. So good to know exactly what you're getting and how much you get out of it. Thanks.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it feels like we need to know a little bit more. I'm not against this program at all. I'm just not sure, really, beyond setting it up and getting all of these things in place with legal advice and that sort of thing, and building the whole thing out. I'm not sure where it goes after that or how it goes, how it perpetuates. Am I making any sense here?
No. I mean, I think you're making full sense. I mean, what I have in hand is the information that I'm using is off a Lexipol proposal. If we were to move forward with the purchase of this program, now you're talking about signing off on a contract with Lexipol. So all that information is included in that contract agreement. So, I haven't seen a contract for Lexipol, just a proposal.
Are there any sort of hidden costs in terms of any implementation details from whatever recommendations they're trying to make in the policy that's originally generated the first time around? Like, do you have a sense of what kinds of things that they would actually be recommending as part of that? And would there be those types of costs?
Yeah, so part of the proposal included the estimate, and the estimate breaks down exactly what they're offering, and they break down their product into different tiers or different tiers of implementation based on a necessity. So that's all spelled out in the proposal itself. As the department would work through this, it would take about anywhere from 6 to 9 months to reach the final tier of implementation on this. So there's a lot of work between the town and Lexipol in order to create that living policy document.
Okay. Mr. Eiler.
So, I mean, a lot of times when you buy into these like software type programs, here's the software, you're kind of on your own. If you need help, here's a number to contact us. This is something different where they work with you and implement on a step-by-step basis to get you to your end result. So that's what's so attractive about this program.
Mr. Eiler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, I know with the school committee, they have a whole pile of policies, but their starting point was there's a mass association of school committees that has a model policy. Is there something similar for fire departments, that there's a model policy that you could use that's 95% of what we might want? Or
I mean, that's exactly what this Lexipol product is. I mean, they have at their disposal, multiple guidelines and policies directly related to fire departments.
But I'm curious if the state has generated something that
I mean,
you can use.
to be honest with you, John, I mean, most police and fire departments, when it comes to policies, they're kind of really on their own. They create their own policies and procedures. They have a policy and procedure book, or if it's or it's on a computer. But you're kind of on your own.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm trying to get a sense of the temperature, whether we want to move ahead with this or whether we want to get some additional information and then maybe revisit this next week. I don't know what people's thoughts are.
Like I said, the only thing I can say is that I haven't really explored on how you exit this type of solution. That information certainly would be included in a contract that we would sign off with Lexipol.
And not only that, but what do you actually have after you leave the program? Is it just the policy, or is there, and what do you move towards? Like, how do you physically maintain what you've got?
Yeah.
Your investment, Roger.
Just, I think I'd at least put it off to next week. A one-liner on their website raises the question, because it says Lexipol retains copyright over all manuals they create, even those modified by local agencies. So I think we need to know quite a bit more about what we get and what we come away with. See what we can do by next week. Maybe it has to be put off until we can understand it more in depth, or so the department can understand more in depth.
Do we have a local representative?
Yeah, so there's a representative Lexipol rep out of Massachusetts that I've been communicating with. I'll touch base with her tomorrow.
Well, maybe the subcommittee and you and Chief and Andy can get together and meet with them.
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
That would definitely be good.
Yeah, I mean, I can set that up.
Okay, so we will postpone that till next week.
So you got a couple of hands, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, am I missing hands?
No, you got your two hands. It's Doug's you're missing, I think.
Oh, sorry, Doug. I had scrolled down. That's why I didn't see you. Sorry, Doug.
That's fine. So a couple of things. One, just a quick Google search. It appears that Stoughton, Mass. is using Lexipol for their fire department. That might be something we can reach out to. Chief, there's a lot in the backup here about the training and daily trainings and the training minute and whatever. Is that something that the union is that going to be a negotiated thing that they're going to have to do training every day for 2 minutes on their phones or whatever? I mean,
Yeah, no, that's not going to be something that has to be negotiated.
Okay.
That's just another great an added benefit to this Lexipol Solutions is that, you have policies in place, and now we can do, daily, weekly trainings on our specific policies that only take minutes. So, it's great to have policies and procedures, but you want your people to know what's included in those policies and procedures.
Yeah. So, if I could just a little bit more, you all set, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. So want to frame this just a little bit more. John Eiler said something that gives us one notion, and then there's another piece. So what John referred to is the state of Massachusetts Departments of Education. They publish a whole framework of every kind of aspect of policy and procedure to your heart's content. And at least in Burlington's case, and I think most municipalities, what they do is they refer to that, and they literally adopt those pieces of it that work for their community, and they augment the pieces of it that need to be changed, and they add things to it. In the end, Burlington publishes its own school department district policies and procedures, and it's a living document. And the school committee and the superintendent and whatnot periodically review sections of this thing to our adherence and updates and whatnot, but we own it. We maintain it ourselves, and it's work, right? I mean, the school committee and the superintendent and whatnot, they work on this thing. In the case of the fire department, it's unclear to me if you and the training officer would get something from Lexapol that you create our own, stage one policies and procedures that are complete, and then you move it forward as a living document on your own and periodically service from them, or if it's something different. If it's something with part and parcel of this thing on kind of a forever basis with an annual maintenance fee. And I can't quite wrap my arms around which way does this go. And you're tackling a big thing here, so don't be put off by all this. I'm not pushing back. I'm trying to get it clear before we dive into it. And I'm still pretty unclear. And maybe Mike, in the subcommittee, you can talk to them a little bit more and bring back some clarity. But they're two completely different models. The state of Massachusetts just says, hey, here's everything you ever wanted to know about policies and procedures. And by the way, if you use these, you're in our good graces. And if you don't use them and you're doing something different, or you're not doing anything at all, you could very well find yourself in the outhouse. So I don't know which this is.
Okay.
I mean, we'll get some more information.
Yep, we will revisit this next week. So the next thing up is Article 710, which is the administrative vehicle replacement. Mike.
Yep, thank you. So this is a replacement request for, as it says on the capital request form, a 2009 Ford Escape. It's got corrosion issues like the other one that we replaced a couple of years ago. The mileage on the car is not that high. It's about 75,000 miles. So what's that, like a 11-year-old car, I guess, 12-year-old car. But the corrosion is underneath the car where the engine and transmission are. Phil and I went over and kind of crawled underneath it and looked at it. I mean, I could see there was a lot of rust there. I couldn't tell how imminent any like failure was going to be on that. I feel like obviously these two Ford Escapes had a common problem with this corrosion issue, unfortunately. So this is also in need of being replaced. Subcommittee voted 2-0 to support.
Mr. Chairman,
Phil.
we did get directly under it on both sides. The motor mounts are rotting out. The muffler system, the catalytic converter is all in disrepair. So, I mean, it definitely is rotting away.
Thanks, Phil.
I'm sorry, what year is this vehicle, please?
2009.
Thanks. Any further questions? Doug.
Not specifically a question, but we do have a ongoing theme of rust and corrosion on underside of our vehicles, and I understand we haven't been able to clean them like we should, but with the new facility and the new indoor wash with the undercarriage wash, I'm certainly hopeful that we'll see across the board with town vehicles that there's just a regular schedule, that it's expected that they get run through that, especially in the winter, just so we can get a little more time out of these. I mean, I don't blame any specific department. I think it's just the way it works in the winter. It's kind of hard to wash these things, and so
yep,
it's just a hope.
Well, the other point is that I've got 3 vehicles in my driveway. One's an 89, one's a 2004, and one's a 2010. None of them have corrosion issues on the undercarriage, so I don't know why this keeps coming back. It's very consistent.
There's probably a ton of different things that may be going on in that case. I'm not sure it's a fair comparison, but it's a point taken. Is there any further discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion for $33,000 for administrative vehicle replacement.
Move, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, David. Brad?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Doug? Yes. Frank?
Yes.
Jaya?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Tom?
No.
No. And chair votes aye, 13-1-0. All right, so we have transfer for receipts reserved account for ambulance services.
Was that one postponed or something? I thought I saw that in the note this week.
Yes, that's going to be withdrawn.
Okay. So then the remainder one is to fund the Burlington International Firefighters Association contract.
There's the borrowing Article 12 as well, Steve.
Okay. I must have skipped over it.
It's public safety communications network upgrade.
Yes, I did skip over that. Okay, let's do that, and then we can go on to the other one.
Yep. So this is the communication, an upgrade to the communications network that are mainly used by the fire and police, although I guess DPW uses it as well. And it's the radio communication system. So, you know, the policemen and the firemen are communicating back and forth to headquarters or to each other. And they're not doing that by whipping out their cell phone. They're using radio transmissions to do that. So we have a system in place that controls that communication within Burlington that includes things called repeaters, which are, you know, high up on towers and kind of carry the signal out around town to, you know, different locations where things may be happening. The system that's being replaced is about 30 years old, and it's not up to snuff and not particularly, you know, has some safety issues in that there are dead spots in town where communication is either poor or not able to be made. There's also obsolescence of the equipment, so it's becoming harder to repair the system because the parts aren't available. So this article here deals with that, and it's a three-phased approach to do so. First phase is fiscal year 2022. It's, you know, $1,240,000. I believe the total three phases are about $2.5 million that will be done in the following fiscal year, and then I believe still the following fiscal year after that. So over the three phases. The first phase that will be done in 2022, if this goes through, you know, doesn't require the second phases in order to gain any benefit, and it will involve replacing the infrastructure of the repeater that currently is on top of the water tower. That will be replaced, and there will be two other repeaters placed around town to provide coverage all around town for public safety workers. So yeah, we had some information and the backup in the warrant, and then some other stuff was sent around today. The subcommittee voted 2-0 to support this project. It seems like it's overdue. It kind of jeopardizes safety in certain situations. So yeah, we supported it.
Thanks, Mike. Chief Patterson, would you like to add stuff?
Sure, I'll try to be to the point on this. The purpose of this project is really twofold. First and foremost, it's to replace our existing public safety communication infrastructure. So right now we have one main repeater that's located on what we call Greenleaf Mountain, which is the water tower that is located in the area of Cambridge Street at Mall Road. What we're proposing to do is we're proposing to replace that repeater with a new system, as well as add 2 additional repeaters. One on Blanchard Road's water tower, and one on a water tower off of Crosby Drive in Bedford. So Mike hit upon one of our big issues is that we have dead spots in Burlington communication-wise, meaning that when a police officer or a firefighter is communicating on either a mobile radio or a portable radio, that message is not clearly being transferred to other units and dispatch centers, which is really problematic, and it's a real health and safety concern. So we're looking to strengthen our communication capability and eliminate dead spots that we have throughout the town. The other component of this is that our portable radios and some of our mobile radios are approaching the age where they need to be replaced. So our portable radios are approaching, they are 10 years, and that's roughly right around the lifespan of a portable radio. So this is a complete overhaul of public safety communication. It certainly addresses some of the gaps that we have right now. And once again, a lot of the equipment that both police and fire, not a lot, all of the equipment is really approaching that obsolete age, which is a big problem to us because obsolete equipment is unreliable. We've seen that here at the fire department, where we've had our communication system completely shut down 6 months ago, and we had to make an emergency repair call to get service. So I hate to use the term, but our system, public safety, our system is basically band-aided right now and in real desperate need of replacement.
Thanks. Doug, you have a question?
A quick one. In the backup, it mentioned that the proposed dispatch and control equipment can be moved into a combined dispatch center. Do we have plans, long-term or short, to have some combined dispatch center? If so, then will we have multiple dispatching consoles that we won't need? Just wondering if that's in a plan to have some combined center and if there's some value in that.
Sure. I mean, we've discussed combined dispatch on the town side. We're not anywhere close to that happening. The good thing about this proposal is that the equipment will be going to police dispatch and fire dispatch. If there comes a day when we decide that we want to have a combined dispatch, all this equipment can be moved into one area. So, to try to summarize it in an easy way, police has, at least 2 dispatch consoles. Fire has 2 dispatch consoles. If we were to merge into one combined dispatch center, you would need at least a minimum of 4 dispatch consoles, preferably 5. So all this equipment can be moved.
Thanks. John? Or were you set, Doug? Okay, Doug, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I wanted to thank you for responding to all my questions. I think the chair has noted I occasionally ask questions. And I appreciate you saying the quote. I'm still reviewing that, so there'll be further questions on that, but I promise not to make too many. The one thing I'm curious about is you did a great job explaining this 2-channel concept. Is the thing I'm a little confused by is the same equipment used for both channels, or do you literally have one set of equipment for channel 1 and another for channel 2?
Yeah, it's separate equipment. So channel 1 would have all its equipment, all its hardwire, and channel 2 would have the same exact equipment as channel 1 would. So they're two separate.
I'll admit I'm a little puzzled by that. In any other radio system, it would presumably just be a switch between channel 1 and 2 is all you're buying, and everything else is the same. Why is it that it needs to be duplicated?
I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I mean, we both police and fire use channel 1 as their primary communications. Police uses channel 2 for their tactical operations. Fire uses channel 2 for any fireground, for their fireground channel. So the channels and the equipment are two separate and distinct systems.
Okay, that's interesting. But just to make sure, the radios that are in the vehicles or the portables carried by people, those presumably can send and receive on either channel. Is that true? They don't need to carry 2 radios, do they?
No, that's so our portables and our mobiles have multiple channels programmed into them. So it's as simple as switching a toggle switch on the top of a portable, or pushing a button on a mobile that would take us to those different channels.
Okay, so they support both channels, but oddly, the base stations are one channel each.
The infrastructure are separate and individual. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, thank you.
Sure.
I had one quick question, and then I'll go to Rob. So, in the phasing of this, is there any sort of compatibility issues between the old equipment and the new equipment that's going in, or is this like everyone's going to get new radios as part of this first phase?
So there would be no compatibility problems. As the phases are done, we'd still be able to use our current portables and mobile radios through this entire process. So there should be no issues with that.
But after phase 1, the old radios will have the benefit of the additional coverage area.
So correct, that is correct. Yes.
Okay.
So the gaps that I talked about earlier, hopefully will be no longer.
Okay, thanks.
One of the real nice features about this system is that the system, it's the terminology actually is called voters or redundant voters. So I'll try to easily explain this to you. You have 3 repeaters on the 3 water towers that I mentioned. There's a police cruiser that's on Wheeler Road that needs to make a communication. When they hit their mic, either on their mobile or portable radio, that repeater on Blanchard Road is the closest repeater, and is going to pick up that signal or transmission from that police officer. The other good thing about this is with the 3 sites that I mentioned, they're all going to be able to simulcast or communicate with one another. So it truly strengthens our whole communication system.
Awesome. Okay, Rob?
Obviously, this is a big dollar program. And why did you choose this one over the probably many, many others? What is different?
Chief Patterson?
I mean, what is different? I mean, so why did we choose this particular vendor, or why are we going this route?
Both.
I mean, so the best way for me to answer this is our current infrastructure has been in place in the town for 30 years. You know, and I know that over the past 30 years, all the changes that have occurred in our community. So now we have a number of tall buildings located throughout our community. You know, the infrastructure itself is approximately 30 years old, so it's aging, obsolete, and leads to being problematic for us. So with the one repeater, and think about this. So you have one repeater on Greenleaf Mountain. You know, basically the further you get away from that single repeater, the weaker your signal is. With the addition of 2 additional repeater, you know, we're absolutely covering our entire community, which is hugely in the benefit of the public.
If I can rephrase Rob's question, though, I think what he's asking is why this particular vendor versus maybe some alternative solutions that could be out there.
There's not a whole lot of vendors out there that do this work. We have been using this company called Allcom. They work for police, fire, and DPW for you know, since I've been here for 30 years. I mean, they're well known. They specialize in radio communications. They've done a lot of similar projects in different communities that we are aware of. So we're very comfortable working with Allcom, and you know, we're going to stick with Allcom through this project.
Rob, do you have follow-up?
Yeah. Did you look at any other vendors since you're comfortable with them?
So we did not bring in any other vendors to design this plan, no.
Okay, thank you.
John, your hand's up again. I don't know if that's a new hand or an old hand.
Yes, just a quick question. I'm just curious, is there not a requirement to have competitive bidding on this, or?
So Allcom, all of their bidding, or excuse me, all their pricing falls under the Massachusetts state bid. So, you know, they're bound to those prices under the Massachusetts state bid. So I don't think it really matters who the vendor is. If the price will be what is on the Massachusetts state bid.
Well, I guess the difference could be that someone else, a different vendor, might be able to do it with, you know, less equipment somehow, for instance.
Could be the case.
Okay. That might be worth considering for this amount of money. That, you know, there could be an option that you know, if one vendor, you know, could guarantee that we get townwide coverage with, say, only 2 repeaters instead of 3, that would lower the cost and potentially get the same result.
Any further discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion for Article 12, borrowing Phase 1 Public Safety Communication Network Upgrade and Replacement for a cost of $1.24 million.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Okay. Brad,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug? I'm sorry, was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Frank,
Yes.
Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
No.
Tom? Oh, Tom is gone outside with Roger, so that's 11-20.
Tom is still here.
I'm sorry, I saw him disappear earlier. Tom?
I voted no.
Okay, so that is 11-30. Apologies, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have to fund the Burlington International Firefighters Association contract.
So at the time of our meeting with Chief Patterson on Monday, that was still being negotiated.
Okay. Will that make it in time for next week's subcommittee or Ways and Means meeting? John?
Hi, Steve. Thank you. So we just late breaking news. We weren't done in time for the subcommittee meeting, and we asked Chief Patterson to mention to the subcommittee that we'd love to try to schedule a meeting for the either next Wednesday or possibly Tuesday. We hate to be last minute, but we've made some. We're pretty confident that we're going to be able to have a deal to present.
Okay. Is that something the subcommittee can accommodate?
Yeah, I have that scheduled for 5:30 on Wednesday.
Great. Thank you very much. So
And,
we'll take that.
Union's doing the same scheduling for Wednesday also, so that hopefully we'll both be able to pull the trigger that day.
I'm sorry, what was that, John?
So the union has scheduled to have their ratification vote on Wednesday also. As long as we're able to finalize everything, that timing will work out great.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I will move the Warren article that we postponed on the training and and this over to next week. Thank you, Chief Patterson. And then finally, but last but not least, we have the PEG Cable Access Enterprise Fund. Brad, would you like to do the honor?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this is the third year we have seen this article. So it's hearing some feedback here. So before I get into this, well, I'll start with the explanation. So PEG Cable Access refers to the PEG Cable Access Enterprise Fund is a financial entity that's been set up on the town side a number of years ago. It's a way to better handle the payments to BCAT, who is the current PEG Access vendor in Burlington. For the benefit of those new to the committee who might not know, the funding mechanism for BCAT, the town is there are two stages. And again, this is dictated by, I believe this is federal law, isn't that right, John? Paul, I believe that, but the town has negotiations with cable providers in town, and part of the cost of their doing business in Burlington is a certain percentage of their profits go to provide cable access. So there are contracts between the town and the cable providers for the town. In the meantime, again, this is dictated by law. The town can have a cable provider to do cable access. BCAT has been the provider for a number of decades now. So there is a separate contract between the town and BCAT. BCAT and the town just went into an agreement for a new 20-year contract. So the funding comes from the cable companies to the town. The town then pays the money to BCAT. So this particular warrant article, as part of having the enterprise fund each year, town meeting needs to vote on the flow through of this account, and the current rate of funding that goes through is $585,000. Now, as an aside, there are actually 4 members of Ways and Means who are currently on the BCAT board. I'm actually, at this point, the longest serving member on the board and past president, but there's no conflict of interest. Again, the monies going to BCAT have been already negotiated by contract. This is merely a procedural vote on the town side, so no conflict of interest for any of the 4 of us to vote on this. There is no subcommittee vote because I felt like I knew the details of this probably as well as the administration by this point. So it is what it is. So there you are, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brad. Any further questions? Oh, Paul.
Brad was spot on all of that. The only thing I wanted to add was you pay a little bit of a surcharge on your cable bill, and that's what allows them to provide the money to the town. And we then contract with BCAT to provide the service.
Thanks, Paul. Any further questions? Chair will entertain a motion to transfer the sum of $585,000 to operate the FY22 paid cable access enterprise.
Motion to approve.
I had a motion and a second. Cody,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Doug, Frank,
Yes.
thanks. Jaya,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye. That's 14-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, just in the interest of public disclosure, Brad, myself, Roger, and you are on the board of directors.
Yes, I was actually just about to mention that because he had not disclosed who we were. And I know that Brad was trying to keep us a secret.
I think we should call for a new vote.
I'll vote against it.
We are
Treasurer, by the way, Roger is the treasurer.
That's right.
In the interest of transparency.
In the interest of transparency, we are also volunteers. We do not receive compensation for this.
Okay, who here isn't associated with BCAT then?
Who doesn't have a show on Beacon? No.
Well, I don't have a show, but I guess I'm the host of this show. So
Not yet, Steve, but you're the star of this show.
yeah, thanks a lot.
This is his show on Beacon.
Yeah, I'm still working on the theme song. Give me a few more weeks. So just going over that brings the end of tonight's agenda and going over next week. We have 3 still budget line items that we need to cover: negotiated settlements, the public debt and interest, and we also have the Minuteman Regional School assessment. We also have the school warrant articles, and we have 2 select board warrant articles. And then we have some various transfers, which I expect some of them will probably be disappearing. We have the tax abatement defense fund, the select board small cell peer review, and then funding administrative and professional compensation plans, as well as the part-time compensation plan. And then we have the usual annual school community custodial services, and then the warrant article for the school accrued liability fund. And I also have a placeholder for review town revolving accounts and expenditures. So John has volunteered to answer any questions that we may have out of band if he wants to reach department heads and things like that. So feel free to reach out to John. Not John Eiler, but John Denizio. I saw John laughing there. And then we also have the remainder of the fire articles that we postponed from tonight. So that brings up minutes.
Mr. Chairman, one question. Is that all for next week?
That's all for next week. So next
Revolving
week is,
accounts is on tonight's agenda. Do we change that?
no, we can bring up revolving account agendas as well. I left them on for both weeks.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to skip something.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Mr. Eiler.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. We have minutes also, but I did want to. I did have just a couple quick ones on the revolving accounts. If this is a convenient time, or would you prefer we do it next week?
Go ahead. We have the audience.
Thank you. And by the way, John, thank you very much for all your answers. You've also noticed I ask a lot of questions. I guess I'll just ask. I'll try to keep it to three here. So did I understand the ambulance account is a new one, but it also, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like that article got withdrawn. So is that correct, or?
John.
Yeah, so the article for this year to transfer any money out, to appropriate any money out of there has been withdrawn, yes.
All right, so it looks like, we've had, roughly 400,000 go in there, and we have no plans to use that for the ALS service somehow. I'm just curious why that would be.
I think we want to take some time to try to calculate what the total cost is of providing the ALS service. The idea of us putting this in a receipts reserve fund was sort of capture the extra revenue that we're bringing in to try to offset some of the costs of adding that service. So what we're hoping to do is come back in the fall with a more comprehensive plan to say that we think this is around what our annual revenue is going to be, and this is what we think we should do with the money, and come back in the fall with that.
Okay, so I assume the intent is that at least the incremental cost of the ALS service would hopefully be covered by the revolving account as opposed to coming out of the operating budget?
Yes, some portion of them, yes.
Which is great. Okay. And then I guess one is sort of I'm formulating this still, but and maybe you can help. It's a general question. It came up in the context of the school circuit breaker funds. Just speaking for myself, but I think when I was on the school sub, I think I'll say totally surprised by the fact that the surplus in the accommodated account, instead of going back to the town, went into this heretofore unknown to me circuit breaker account to be carried over to the next year. And I understand it's perfectly legal and legitimate. It was just very surprising. So it was in that context that I was asking to have it added to the report, just so we could see, is that going up or down in any given year? And I still think that's a useful thing to do, and I understand you're conceptually grouping it with the grant accounts, but and I can't say why, but this one somehow feels different. Maybe it's because of the surprising nature of it. So I'll reiterate that request, and I'll ask a more general question. And I'm asking in the context of schools only because that's where I happen to be familiar with it, but I'm sure other departments may have the same thing going on, which is the grant accounts in general. And I'm sort of asking the best way to handle this. The grant accounts in general seem to be a somewhat mysterious source of revenues that, pop up and disappear and fund various things. So, just as another example, I know the Council on Aging, was funding a couple positions at least at one point through grants, which, great thing to do. And I know the schools fund various things through grants, and the police funded, part-time positions as grants. And the reason I think it's somehow trying to get our hands around this is useful is, as we saw with the police, it very reasonably, oftentimes these previously grant funded positions, when the grant runs out, turn into requests for operating budget positions. So I'll ask the general question is, the current approach from what I've seen is we don't really know what's going on with the grants other than, maybe there's some large number mentioned or something. What is the best way for us to track what's happening with grants that at some point in the future may or may not turn into an operating budget thing? I'll ask that general question.
So I could only obviously speak for the town side, but I think what we try to do is show all of the positions that were, or pieces of positions that we're funding out of a grant as an offset. So we list a position and then show the offset that it's coming from the grant, so that we know if that ever does go away, this is the person, or these are the costs that we've been using for the grant. Or we just do that for positions, basically.
Does that show up in FTE's chart, for instance?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't delineate on the FTE chart which are grant funded or which are not, but they're in each department has. If, for instance, you mentioned the police department, that's identified that this is grant funded, and COA identifies the same thing at the bottom. She shows an offset that those are grant funded.
So that's a good way to handle the position, certainly, and that helps there. So for something like the circuit breaker or equivalent accounts that I don't know to even ask about, how do we want to, how can people outside of accounting understand what's happening there?
I think Paul also wanted to say something too.
I just want to remind John that we started adding in those offsets into the budget because he asked us to a couple years ago when he got on the committee. So I'm surprised that he must have been on the school subcommittee for a little too long to forget that. But that was at his request. So.
And I appreciate that, Paul. And I would like to, in fact, commend you for being so responsive to my many unreasonable demands.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Frank.
Yeah. So to John's point, for certain, in my mind, on the town side, anytime grant money is used to fund part or all of a position, there's always an understanding, I think, that if the position has retention to it, in other words, the person you brought in is expecting, and we're expecting that they would stay on the payroll, then we know that we have most likely encumbered a future payroll position the moment that grant isn't available. I mean, that's just a given. When you open these positions up, you can't open them up just because there's a grant. You have to open them up because you're willing to fund it at some point for certain, in my mind.
I'm not sure that's always the expectation when these positions are created.
Then you're playing with firecrackers and matches.
Yes.
So that would be that. And as far as the circuit breaker is concerned, that's state money that comes in as as monies we can earn when we go excess on a commitment by commitment basis for outside education, right? And that simply accrues. There's no hiring going on.
No, it's a different category for sure. And I guess and maybe I've had the wrong thought process. When I look at accommodated accounts, I think my general thought process in voting for funding for those has oftentimes been, to some extent they are what they are, and we can't control them very much.
Right.
But the understanding is, if we happen to vote too much, we'd get the money back. So
that's true, but that's true independently of the circuit breaker. The circuit breaker has no bearing on what you'll get back.
Well, no, it does. When I say get it back, I mean it goes back into the general fund. Whereas with the schools, because by law, I guess they're allowed to have this circuit breaker account that can carry a balance across fiscal years. So there was this excess in the accommodated budget account, which at first glance I would have imagined would go back to general fund.
I think it did.
But it ended up getting squirreled away into this circuit breaker account and carried over to the next year.
Well, we shouldn't. That sounds wrong to me. I actually don't think it works that way, but you probably know better. I think we should pursue this separately. Those two should never mix together.
The circuit breaker is funding special education, so it's mixed in the sense that it is a grant, so to speak, that is funding the same thing that our accommodated account budget is funding.
It's targeting special ed. It can't be spent for something else. You can't put it back in the general fund.
That's right. It could go into general fund. Here's what I'm saying. No, let me be clear. It as John will probably attest to, it's all accounting. So if you have $100K surplus, just to pick a number, in special ed, was that $100K the $100K that the town put in, or the $100K that the state put in? And I think the schools conveniently said, "Oh, that was the state money, so we're going to put it in the circuit breaker, carried over to next year account." Where they could have just as easily said, "Well, we spent all the circuit breaker money; that's the town money, and we'll give it back to the town."
But the circuit breaker is actually a reimbursement for town money that was spent, right? So if we have an excess of it, right, we should really only have 75% circuit breaker.
Well,
so that means we spent am I missing something?
Just to be clear, in previous years when we've had accommodated account surpluses, it did go back to the town. So it's clearly something that can happen. So it really is just a matter of how you classify where you think that money came from. You could just as easily pick one or the other. And again, it's perfectly legal what was done. It was just surprising. So that's why I'm trying to get some visibility into by asking this, reporting on that account.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Phil.
A question for Paul on the whole subject of grants. Why is it that, for instance, how does a municipality accept these grants? Is it just the board votes? For instance, town meeting has to vote to accept Chapter 90. They have to vote to accept Marshall Simons. Is there any centralized process for approving grant requests and accepting the money?
I'm not sure how the schools do it, Phil, but most of the grants that we receive on the town side don't require any formal acceptance. And we've actually been told when we changed over town council that we don't necessarily have to accept Chapter 90 at town meeting either. We like to, we figured we'd get more questions if we took it off the warrant, so we just kept it on. And again, it's a good story. It takes 2 seconds to talk about what we're doing for roads. But on the town side of things, again, not speaking for the schools, most of the grants are either entitlement grants that we just automatically get based upon some breakup in share of the communities in Massachusetts, or other ones where most of the paperwork comes in and I sign off and there's no formal acceptance required.
Thank you.
Thanks. John, are you exhausted of questions tonight?
I think everyone's heard enough.
I think everybody else is exhausted of questions.
Shut off.
Roger, you're muted as you're talking and leaving.
John, you single-handedly tipped us over into a 3-hour meeting.
We have meeting minutes I sent out late, and John has already corrected about half of them. So, what I could do is just revise them and send them out again, and we can vote on them next week, or we can vote on them now with the amendments. But given that John put it into 10:01, maybe we want to postpone it.
Next week is fine.
And I know Tom has a motion to make, so I'll let him make it. Frank has a question though. Oh gosh.
That's a leftover. I'm all set.
Oh, all right. Go ahead, Tom. You've been wanting to splurt it for about 5 minutes now.
Motion to adjourn.
Accepted.
Second.
Thank you, Mike.
Excellent.
Have a good night, everyone.
Steve.